Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Encanto. This is actually the 60th animated feature produced by Disney Animation, which is pretty insane when you think about how that goes back to the first animated feature film with color and sound, or at least in America. But Encanto is, I would say, an interesting film. I actually got to watch it sort of twice in a row. And the first time I was into it, but not as into it. And there's a lot going on. It was Christmas, there's kids, and I was just not fully getting to appreciate the film, basically. And then I was like, well, I should watch it again because I would like to see it. And I did. And I do feel like this film grew on me more. When I previously saw Moana, go see my review of that, I wasn't as into it, but I instantly knew my daughter, who was not born yet, but was going to come soon. I thought, I bet she's gonna really like it, but this isn't really my thing as much. And she does really like Moana. I was right. I felt the same way about it initially, but then it really grew on me, which makes me sort of think we should see these films multiple times, because you really don't know how much they're going to, especially these Disney movies, how much they're going to infect the culture. And I mean that by the songs and the references and stuff, until you've seen them a few times. So I do feel a little more appreciation than I usually do, I think. But I also like what this film says about family. This film opened around Thanksgiving. I didn't get to see it because I don't really go to theaters right now, but it then came out on Christmas, and it's a nice family film that actually talks about family in a kind of constructive, loving way. I've heard a lot of discussion we need more Disney villains. Everyone's like, oh, it's this thing, Disney, marketing thing. I've always kind of thought it has more to do with the Studio Ghibli influence, which is such a big influence on Disney in particular, and a lot of its head creative officer, head people or whatever, that I think it's more about that than it has anything to do with them. Because look, Disney has those Descendant movies, which supposedly don't star George Clooney. I've never seen them, but they clearly marketability wise want more villains. That's not something they're concerned about. I think it's just creatively these people are looking at films and animation without necessarily the typical Disney villain. Now, do I see that coming back at some point? Sure. But they don't do that in this. This is a family film about a problem within the family and how they deal with it. And I think that's really great, actually. It's one of the better kind of family films I've seen, and especially family animation films I've seen. Maybe I really like Mitchell's vs. Machines as well, but those films are more about specifically two family members. And I think this is more to do with how this person fits within an entire family, because how they deal with Maribel, who's sort of considered, I guess, sort of the black sheep, because within this house there is it's a magical house because of this candle that Alma, who's kind of the matriarch of the whole thing, gives everyone powers except for Alma. I noticed no one brings that up. What's her fucking power? She just has this cool house and shit. Anyway, wouldn't she go, oh, you're just like me, it's not a big deal, whatever. Families don't think like that, so I guess it sort of works. But it's nobody goes also Alma, who has no power, who's right here, it's also in our family. Nobody brings it up, but pretty obvious to me. Whoever uses the power, she's not, whatever. But anyway, so everyone has a power. Her children do, and then her children's children do, except for Maribel, who tried to do the whole ceremony and her door disappeared. And then the next in line kid does, and he gets his powers, but then the house is crumbling and everyone's powers are fading and things, and she's trying to figure out what it is, and even finds Bruno, who's doing sort of a Bad Ronald sort of thing, figuring out, because he can have premonitions and kind of see the future. They have to kind of help figure out a way to make sure everyone's powers don't go away, because it also helps the town, and they help out their community with their powers. What I do like about this film is it takes place in one location, both this town. It never leaves the town, which is pretty different for most Disney films. And it really mainly is located in the house. Now, they do, I guess, cheat because it's a crazy cool house. So it's each person has a crazy cool room. Because of their powers, one of her sisters has flower power. Sorry. I just realized what I did there. One of them has it can talk to animals, one of them can do this and that. You don't see everyone's room, unfortunately, but they have these really cool rooms that the magic gives to them, these magic rooms. It's a very well designed house. I thought it was a very pretty house. So there's a lot to go in. I guess they're sort of cheating, but mainly you understand it's within this one world, which I don't think I've ever seen a Disney film do other than like Pixar with Ratatouille, but that's technically a different studio, I guess. And they do that very well. This is directed by Byron Howard, who's a veteran from Zootopia to Tangled. It also is by a lot of people who have not directed before. You have Jared Bush, who although helped to write the screenplay for Moana, has not directed a feature film before, or at least an animated one for Disney, as well as Clarice Castro-Smith. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry. Or Clarice Castro-Smith. Let's hope that's right. Who co-directed as well. So I think you have a lot of people in this who have different ideas, with a veteran kind of leading the pack. You can tell that through the direction and animation, particularly like how they do dancing in this. Like when I saw a lot of the women in the family like move their hips and stuff like that. I'm not trying to be gross, but like how people from Colombia are seeing dance like that. I was like, oh my god, this feels like I'm watching a live action film when I see those people dance. It really like struck me, actually, particularly the dancing, specifically the color in this film. Like I was like really taken aback actually by the color. Now I might just be watching on my TV, but I was like, this is one of the more colorful animated films. We're talking about a studio who's known for their color, particularly in their animated films. This is the 60th, and that's what they introduced to the world of animated feature films. So yeah, I got it to connect somehow. But it really was like sort of a veteran. It felt like, and I didn't know this actually till later, but I was feeling like it felt like new ideas being siphoned through a veteran, and I didn't feel that when we got a similar situation. I know it's a different studio, supposedly. Pixar with Soul, when you had Pete Docter with co-directors and stuff, it just honestly felt like a Pete Docter thing, and those guys were there to make sure he's not super racist or something. I don't really know, but like it felt like Pete Docter's thing, and those other guys were there. This felt like they had ideas, and Byron Howard had ideas, and it didn't feel specifically like Tangled or Zootopia. I didn't get that, although tourism in Disney films is sort of a very loose concept, but it had an interesting feel to it, as well as like the Lin-Manuel Miranda songs. Really great. How they use the songs and the music in this is also very interesting. I know Lin-Manuel Miranda's having an insane movie here between Vivo, Tick Tick Boom, In the Heights, this. Is there anything else? I feel like there's another thing maybe. Maybe he's in No Way Home somehow. I don't know. He's done a lot of stuff, and most of them have songs by him, except for Tick Tick Boom, which he just directed. I don't believe he wrote any of the music in that. Maybe I'm wrong. But still, that's an amazing thing to have all happen. I know they did different production processes, and The Heights was written before, and all these things, but still, it's pretty amazing all the content we've gotten from him this year. And so many of the songs are so catchy and memorable, and it does, I do think a lot of them, like, it shows how he's changed as a songwriter, because you look at something in The Heights, I guess they're very kind of similar in terms of the song, the musical styles, and their use of like how the people are singing, or like what each of these songs represent. But in this, like, they have songs where, like, with the stronger sister singing, it feels like a music video. It feels like more of a pop song. When you have the We Don't Talk, I don't know if it's We Don't Talk About Bruno or which song. It might be We Don't Talk About Bruno. Like, everyone's just dancing around her at a table that feels like a Broadway show. Like, there's so much of this that feels ready for Broadway. You could honestly convince me Disney went to Lin-Manuel, had him write this and go, oh, and then we'll put this on Broadway later when this is really successful, which they don't really do. They only do it to like their biggest hits, and that's very presumptive, and maybe they will at some point, but like it feels that ready that you could do that at least. Like, I mean, I know Disney has the infrastructure to do that. I'm not saying I don't, maybe they do, but I do. It did felt like when I was watching, I was like, oh my god. And then even the song where Maribel stops, the pauses it. I don't think I've ever seen a Disney movie where they pause the movie and do like Saved by the Bell, where they go time out and then they sing a song, which was pretty interesting. You know, my daughter was even commenting on like how I don't really like what's going on right now. Like, it did feel very different. Like, this doesn't feel like your usual Disney film, which I think I really enjoyed about it. It's not trying to do the kind of post Shrek things that Frozen and Tangled and so forth did. It's really trying to do a different thing. It did feel like it's trying to like play with the music and the form and like what a Disney movie can be, while also feeling very much like a Disney film. It does feel like a musical X-Men film. Almost Frozen felt that way to me too, but this, like, they're in a house, they all have magical powers and special rooms and all this stuff. It felt very much like the X-Men. I saw Double Toasted had a similar take on that, and it's like, Disney, you own the X-Men. Like, what's going on? like you can make that X-Men movie if you want. It seems they're very excited, but a lot of these themes sort of felt like that. It doesn't do all the things X-Men does, but I am curious about like some of the similarities to this to the other ones was like at the beginning, I was like, how come all these Disney movies now start with like, oh, and this is all the setup to this world and now movie? And it's like, what the fuck? Like everyone, it's like info dump about all the setup, and then we have to get into it. It's like, you know, in Moana, in Frozen, in Tangled, in Zootopia, it's like all these, like, you know, we get all this backstory and then you get the movie. And I know it's essential to it, and they do like hold back and explain it more later, which they do a very good job at. But it's like, that's definitely a trope of this era of Disney, where you have to have that at the beginning of it. And the superpowers thing does seem to be kind of a part of this era as well. It's probably like, you know, the most close to a superhero thing, but I think most of the superhero teams work like a family, so it totally sort of makes sense. Like the X-Men always felt to me like a family, so I sort of understand wanting to use that in the way they do here. You know, most of the actors were fairly good. I do have to say I really like seeing John Leguizamo in anything, so I thought that was really nice. This is probably one of the stronger Disney films. I think Disney's had an interesting year. They put out 2 films, this and Raya, and both feel like films that will not be as appreciated as they will 10 years from now. And I've heard plenty of people have disregarded both of them. I think this is the stronger of the 2. But when I see, you know, my daughter being into them and other kids being into them, these are films that are really making an impact on them, and I think it's because they're sort of different. And it's interesting to see these 2 films and think, what is Disney sort of thinking with their studio at this point? What era are we in necessarily? And where are we in this era, and where are we expanding it? And it felt like, not just because of representation, and I think that is part of it, but I also think because of the topics and the kind of films they will make. And neither Raya or Encanto, I think Encanto kind of maybe more feels like a Disney film than Raya, but neither of them feel the same way like Tangled and Frozen did. But at the time those came out, less so Tangled, but those felt different. And maybe they're looking at, like, we have to constantly expand the brand, and I sort of like that about Disney. Like, we're going into a period that's trying to be experimental. I mean, Byron Howard surprised all of us with Zootopia, and I do think this is an interesting surprise as well. It feels much more like Amakord by Fellini in certain ways, in terms of the community and everything it's doing there, than it does with your typical Disney film in a lot of ways. And it feels much more a very rich world, and a lot going into each of the decisions. As I watched it each time, I've noticed more choices and ideas going on throughout it. It's actually a very rich movie, and I mean that in the best sense, because, you know, almost too rich, because I will say I had trouble understanding who's related to who, because there's like so many characters, and they do explain at the beginning, and the first time I watched it I missed that part, so I was like, wait, is that her dad? Why is he talking to her like that? I think that's her dad. Oh, that's her sister. Okay, that makes much more sense. like I was just totally, they do a good job of explaining to it, but it is a lot of people. I think that'll work on a rewatch. I don't think this film holds up as well on the first viewing. Now, I was distracted, I will say. You know, I don't think the directors intended me to watch it to distract my daughter while we're trying to make Christmas dinner and deal with the baby. Maybe it was. Maybe that was the director. If he did, comment below if you watch this video, I guess. I quite like this film. It's very charming. We Don't Talk About Bruno is as a fucking great song. I think this is pretty stronger. I think this is a strong movie, and I think this is a film that's going to grow in esteem, because it is about family, and it's a nice film to watch as a family together. I think that's going to make you want to watch it more, because it shows, you know, you're all together, and it's a nice, beautiful kind of thing. You know, like, everybody loves each other, and everyone should respect each other in the family. I do agree with what Paleo said on Twitter, that there's no way an older family member would ever, I forget what he said, but it was like, no, it's fucking true, would apologize for something they said like that. That would never happen. I was like, yeah, he's right. It's nice to imagine it could, and maybe this is an idealized family, just a fun, light, what feels like a light musical, but has a really wonderful heart within it. But I also think a lot of it is the Lin-Manuel Miranda of it all. I think the music and his different ways of using this music, if they just made a typical Disney film, I don't think we'd be talking about this in the same way. And I know it had something to do with the story as well, but I think the way his music told this story and the way the direction brought it, it kind of made me feel like I'm definitely watching something different from the studio. And also that no one went, you know, did the "you can't marry a man you just met" edited sequence that everybody's done in their dumb video essay thing. Like that they didn't do that. Like this just felt like a wonderful family film, and I'm actually excited to watch it again. To be honest, like, you know, I was surprised it was coming on Christmas Eve, and I was kind of excited because it was sort of hiding the idea of this film from my daughter because we don't really want her to go to a theater right now, and it was just a wonderful thing for us to watch as a family. We're all talking about how I'm so glad they put it out on Christmas because we're all together and we can all watch it a bunch of times and sing the songs together. And I'm not just saying this because we had a pleasant time. I felt the themes, and watching them as your family enjoys them, and it's a film about family, is a wonderful feeling. And I'm not trying to like sell to the mouse or something like that, but I just thought that was the heartwarmingness of it, I think, and the relatability to your family. And I've definitely been like the weird person in my family lots of times, just kind of wins you over in the end, and that it is doing something very different with this, which totally completely works in a very natural way that I think only someone like Byron Howard can really do. You might not want to talk about Bruno, but I think it'll be in your head whether you wanted to or not. So if you've seen Encanto and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.